Welcome to another episode of Marketing School. I'm Eric Sue.
And I'm Neil Patel.
And today we're going to talk about, well, is cheaper necessarily better? So this conversation stemmed from Neil and I were talking a second ago, and we look at some of our competitors and they're doing pretty well. Some are doing $80 million a year in revenue. We're talking agency wise. Some are doing, $5 or $6 million. And, specifically when we look at their paid advertising services, they charge about, let's say $2,000 or $2,500 a month. That is the management fee. So that sparks kind of this discussion, Neil. Is cheaper necessarily better in this context?
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Some people say you get what you pay for, but I've also seen situations where sometimes a cheaper product is actually better than the more expensive product. You have to really test it out with conversions, and it depends on the industry. I was talking to one of my friends, Ritu, and they sell diamonds, and these are lab-made diamonds. So they're still real in full composition when you look at them under, a telescope or however they analyze diamonds. But the point that Ritu was telling me was because they're making these diamonds in a machine to replicate what it's like beneath the earth. And he was telling me, he's like, look, when we make these diamonds and release them and we're willing to sell them for pennies on the dollar, he's like, no one wants to buy them. When we sell them for the same price that people sell normal diamonds for, because the exact composition is the same, he's just like, our sales go through the roof and we make much more money. And a lot of times when you're trying to figure out the pricing, you also have to look at who your ideal customer is. If they believe that higher price means better quality, then you should consider charging a higher price. If you're in a market where it's race to the bottom, then trying to figure out how you can become lower with your pricing and figure out margins as well with a lower price point, that may be the future of your business.
Yeah, so I think, just to use the example again, so let's say one of our competitors is charging $2,500 a month for paid advertising services. And, if you go to, one of our agencies, maybe, we're trying to charge you 10 grand a month, right? And that's not what we charge, but we're just giving an example. Now, if I am the potential customer, the way I might look at it and say, okay, well, look, if I'm paying 10 grand a month over an entire year, I'm going to be paying 120 grand. That can actually be a full-time kind of, we're talking senior level salary, a person that's completely focused on my business. Why would I pay 10 grand a month to an agency that has so many clients and, I'm not sure how the quality is going to be after a period of time, right? So that's also consideration. But also at the same time, in another vein, when you charge too little, and especially if you're doing like paid advertising for services, for example, if I'm charging like, $200 a month or whatever, a customer might look at that and say, well, that seems a little too cheap because you start to question the quality of it, right? Like when you see like a Mercedes-Benz or something and you see it for like, 15 grand, you're kind of like, well, it's a Benz. Like, why is it so cheap, right? So you can't go too low, but at the same time, you got to think about like how the customer is thinking, how they process things. If they think they're going to get better value doing things on their own or going through another alternative, you got to take that into consideration. You got to look at competitors too. You got to look at the market. There's no, exact science to this, but as Neil mentioned, you're going to be experimenting, you're going to be testing, and eventually you'll hit that happy medium.
Yeah, so in general, right, you can run experimentations on this. You can use A/B testing to figure out what pricing is right for you. Don't just take people's word from it. You can use Optimize, VWO, Crazy Egg, the possibilities endless. Don't just look at how many sales you're getting when you're testing out pricing. You need to look at LTV and profitability as well, and then pick the variation that's working the best. Keep in mind that it's not just what drives the most revenue. Really look at your margins, what's going to scale. Even if one's more profitable, if you see AdWords costs and that's how you drive most of your revenue, continually climbing, well, if you can't keep boosting your conversion rates, then yes, it may make you more money right now if you lower your price points, but at the same time, it could be 3-4 months from now where it's not feasible anymore because the cost per click is just too high.
All right, so with that being said, go to singlegrain.com/survey to help us make this podcast way better for you so you can get more customers, and we'll see you tomorrow.